Hi guys and welcome to my latest review. Now what we're having here today is a beautiful set of in-ears called Tin HiFi T5. These are $129. A few years back my first contact with this brand was with their cheapest model called Tin T2. These were like 35–40 bucks. And for that amount of money, I really loved them. Those were well-made, fully aluminum body, great sounding, incisive in-ears. But after that, I encountered T3, which actually didn't sound all that great. It was overly bright, in my opinion. And now we have T5, which is the most expensive among all of these. So I really did have high expectations from these in-ears because around $100 now it's a really tough competition and better in-ears are coming out on the market every month basically. So just quickly before I start talking about their sound quality, I'll lead you through the build quality and fit. So when it comes to the build, I'm not sure what kind of material this is, but it looks really great. It looks like metallic, but not too shiny. It's some sort of gun gray metallic look. They really look more expensive than they are. This looks very luxury made product. That said, the earbuds themselves are quite a bit chunky. That might not suit everybody. But in my case, I actually didn't have any problems. They are chunky, but they fit really nicely and they're not heavy. They're not overly heavy, so they stay in ear quite good, at least for myself, because, you know, fit and ergonomics is a really personal thing. Cables is also very decent. Nothing to write home about, but it's not tangly much. It's of a decent quality, looks nice. So nothing to complain here, really. When it comes to the packaging, it comes in a fairly big box, as you can see here. You get this really nice luxury-looking carrying case. Several different, I think you get 6 different silicone ear tips and few memory foam ones. That's also very nice. There is a lot of options there. But now it's time to actually move to the sound quality. I'll start with the most prominent thing here, and that's the tonality. Now the bass line on these T5s is emphasized. It's quite warm, but it's not really all that well controlled. It's that kind of warm bass line with padded bass notes. They're heavy, but they're soft and kind of slow. I know some people like that because it gives everything that warm and fuzzy feeling, but I would personally like for the bass line to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more responsive, so I can actually hear more notes and less rumbling. Mid-range is heavily recessed. When it comes to vocals, they feel quite depleted and quite thin, especially because upper mid-range and highest frequencies are again very emphasized. And that brings a lot of very skewed tonality to the mid-range. So some of my favorite singers, like Norah Jones, for example, or Lorde, pop singer, their vocals sound thinned out and unnatural to me. There's a lot of details to be heard, but there's a lot of sibilance too, because lower mid-range is recessed, there is no fullness to talk about, tone timbre is really poor actually, but that upper mid-range gives a lot of details, a lot of edges, a lot of transients, and that engulfs the whole mid-range. It sets the tone for the whole mid-range. But there is one positive thing about that type of tonality. Because of such a strong emphasis on that highest part of the spectrum, soundstage feels really wide and spacious. Like probably the widest and most spacious soundstage that I ever heard on an in-ear anywhere near this price range. Everything just breathes around you. And that's a really, really nice part. These could easily be the soundstaging king. And when I say soundstaging king, I actually mean in terms of width and like depth and tallness, because those highest frequencies are actually giving us all these spatial cues and echoes and atmosphere from the recording. And that feels absolutely huge for in-ear standards. But the imaging itself, like pinpointing and layering instruments, is not all that good. That's a little bit hazy, to be perfectly honest. And part of the reason is because the root of each tone that starts in the bass section, in the bass line, is not that clear, is not that precise. As I mentioned before, bass line is actually warm, it's weighty, but it's on a slow side of things. And that lower mid-range is basically very depleted. So again, we lack a sense of root of a tone. Like tones are not rooted very well. But to be perfectly honest here, my biggest beef with T5 is their really, really skewed tonality. Here it says Tin HiFi on the box, and Hi-Fi stands for high fidelity. High fidelity to the source and to the music being reproduced. And I'm sorry to say, but there is little of high fidelity in the way these in-ears interpret the music. They emphasize the bass, they make it slower and sluggish, they deplete the mid-range completely, they deplete tone timbre completely, and then they emphasize edges and transients, air and atmosphere from the high frequencies. They create something really spectacular because of that when it comes to soundstage spaciousness, but I simply cannot listen to these for more than like several songs without getting tired and without feeling that those highest frequencies are piercing and tiring and dry without that lower mid-range to actually give body and fullness to everything. Who am I to argue with tastes? You might as well like this type of tonality, but as far as my own taste goes and as my own preferences go, this is not my cup of tea and this is not something I would recommend. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't recommend them even for 60 or 70 bucks, because in that price range you could buy Moondrop Aria, for example, that in my opinion are better in-ears. Or Hide's MS2. Again, great in-ears, but for 130, we are already talking, we are so close to the range of something like NF Audio NA2 Plus or NM2 Plus, that are just vastly superior in-ears. Better balanced, more dynamic sounding, lively sounding, less tiring, less dry. And I'm sorry to say this, but T5 are not making into my recommendation list. That said, because really nice guys from Aushida Audio sent these to me, and these are really nice guys, as I said, because they send review samples without asking me to make a good review or anything like that. Not that I would do that, but they don't ask anything in return except me actually linking to their store. And because those are really nice guys, and I actually purchased several things from their store already myself, I think it's not their fault because Tin Audio made this subpar in-ear. So I'll still link to their store down below the video, but I'll leave the links for all of these good in-ears that I actually can fully recommend, such as Moondrop Aria, Hide's MS2, NF Audio, NM2 Plus, NA2 Plus. So you can check these links, check their prices. That's just my way of saying thank you to the Aoshida HiFi, because as I said, the store is really nice and people there are nice, but the product I received this time is just not something that I can recommend. And that would be all for today, guys. Now, if you liked this video, click that button, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And if you really appreciate this kind of unbiased reviews without any beating around the bushes, then also consider becoming a patron. That would really help the channel grow and keep up with this sort of independent work. Thank you for watching and see you next time.